I am very
Hello.
happy to be here with Suba's friends in our country and with Suba's friends in Brazilian country. And
In Belgium.
I find, yes, and Belgium, yes. Hannah sent me a letter also, and I'm I expect everybody in our country, in Novi Sad. I wrote you many times that our home are open for you and our heart also. And these young people around me, around Foundation Suba, helped me to say a story about a young man who was very happy in Brazilian country. And also at the moment, he is a new one for our country. And everybody around me and there are in my heart. Thank you very much for helping me, for save the memory of Suba.
Thank you. Well, I want to welcome all of you, and let me introduce everybody here. So we have a Marc Hollander, who is a publisher from Kremd, and I think he's like the first who should. I said let's start from the end. So now we are like almost 25 years after Suba's gone, and this amazing album that covered the whole world, if you could say. So Marc, please, can you just like introduce us how far this Sao Paulo confession actually went away, and what are the...
Went. I don't have the list of all the countries, but
Yeah, I didn't mean like direct
it traveled.
like,
No, I'm joking. It traveled around the world for sure, for sure. Came out in many countries, and it's a classic album still, and many people loved it. And yeah, it just went to loads of places. It's just a shame that we couldn't do more because, as you know, Suba passed away just before the album was going to come out. He was getting ready to fly to Europe to come and start the promotion. We had planned all kinds of things to just start the promotion. So we had to do it all without him, unfortunately, and he didn't get to see the success of the album. That's the story that we all know.
Yeah. So how hard was it to publish this album? Was it hard at all? Or everybody was already interested in?
No, it wasn't hard. I mean, it's a great album that came at the right moment, and it was something new, you know, this mixture of electronic music and Brazilian elements and loads of other things in the special way that he put them together was something new and fresh, and it was the right moment. You know, sometimes a record appears and it just meets the spirit of the time. It also happened with Bebel Gilberto's album that Suba produced, Tanto Tempo, which was, yeah, it just started a whole wave, a whole trend. These two records were landmark albums for sure. Which doesn't mean that it went on its own. I mean, we worked a lot on it, of course, and it's like that, you know, it's always like that. But you can work as much as you like on a record that doesn't meet the audience. That has to be a two-way thing.
How did you meet Suba? Did you know him before the work or just like with the work?
Okay, so it's a nice story. I thought I was introduced to Suba by Beco, who's right here, because Beco proposed to us to do a compilation of new Brazilian artists and new sounds. That was in '98, and he sent me a bunch of stuff, and including a couple of tracks by Suba. So we put out this compilation called Brasil 2000, including Você Gosta, that eventually was on São Paulo Confession. And then Beco and I started thinking, you know, we could actually do a small sub-label, an imprint, with some of these great new Brazilian artists, and Suba was certainly one of them. So we started Zirigi Boom, which was like a small label inside Crammed, and we started practically the second one, or one of the three first artists that we wanted to work with was Suba. So we worked on putting this album together, and this is when I started talking to him also on the phone. We also spoke a lot during the recording of Bebel Gilberto's Tanto Tempo. Beco was with Suba and Bebel in Rio, and they were calling me each one at the time to explain the situation. We had like a four-way discussion going on, and sort of really Suba and I really became friends at that time through phone conversations, basically. And we talked about other stuff, also literature and other different stuff. And finally, when he came to Brussels, sometime during '99, to meet us, and we spent like 2 days, which were really fun and exciting. And this is when he told me that we had actually met before, because he had come to the Crammed office many years before, maybe in the early '90s, when he was doing all this music that you all know, for ballets and theater. And we have this other sub-label inside Crammed called Made to Measure, which was devoted to publishing music that was done for other types of media, for films and theater and like that. And Suba really liked that collection, and he was dreaming, he said, for us to put out his work. So he came to Brussels, and I didn't remember that. Came to Brussels, came to our office unannounced like that, and proposed his music. And he even translated a review in Serbian that we had received for another artist. And he spent a couple of hours, and we told him, unfortunately, we're not going ahead with the series at the moment. We're busy with other stuff, and we can't really work with you at this point. So, but when he came back, sort of disguised into cutting-edge Brazilian producer, not disguised, but he came under this different incarnation. And this time we welcomed him warmly. We were really excited, but he thought it was really ironical that he had come once before. And he even said that, shortly after that, he got this scholarship to go to São Paulo. And that day he told me, this is thanks to you, because if you had accepted to release my theater music on Made to Measure, maybe I wouldn't have gone to São Paulo. I would have stayed and tried to build on this release. And so in a way, we were, involuntarily responsible for sending him to Brazil, which is quite funny.
Sometimes rejection leads to a acceptation.
Yeah. And these couple of days we spent were really promising, because we talked about loads of stuff and we had loads of projects. Suba also met Vincent Kennis, who is an old friend who works with us and who had started at the time to produce Congolese artists. And the two of them got into this super excited discussion, and Suba was going to go with Vincent to Brazil to produce records. And of course, none of this happened. And later, Vincent went and produced Konono #1, Kasai All Stars, and all these bands. It would have been great to see Suba involved in that.
Thank you for this intro. So it's logical that you already mentioned Beco, that he introduced you to Suba, or Suba to you, or however. So Beco, can you tell us a bit of this? So as I said, I started from the end, because like with the finished project, we're gonna come back to the early Brazilian days. But I just wanted to hear from you, how do you feel today? What was the reaction, or maybe what your thoughts 20 and some years later? How deep was this all, not just music, but this personality and everything? I mean, the Suba is still alive. This music, you can hear it still very often on many different channels on the radio stations. So you all did amazing job. I mean, starting with Suba, but it won't happen without any of you. So please explain a bit how this all happened.
Sure. I think as any timeless music, you know, it's timeless and it keeps coming back and back and back. I think people are still discovering São Paulo Confessions. Now I'm living in São Paulo for 2 years now. Go to record fairs and I speak to a lot of young producers, young DJs. And now, 20-something years later, it's still reverberating and people are still discovering. You know, sometimes people realize that I was involved on that process and they're like, my God, this record was so ahead of the curve that it's still modern, you know, 20s. And it will be modern forever because it is a classic. Absolutely. It is like Bebel's Tanto Tempo. You know, some records, everything comes together at the same time, like Marc said. I giving a little of the background how I met Suba. I had a German friend, Wolfgang Galler, and he had a compilation that had 2 Suba tracks. It was called, I think, Sonora Garoa. I don't remember how I met. He was German, and I believe I met in New York. And there was this incredible track, and there was one that already had a João Gilberto interpolation. And when I heard that, I was already friends with, I was living in New York and I was friends with Bebel. And I showed it to Bebel and I said, my God, look at this. Look how modern this is. You know, with Bossa Nova, I had never heard anything. So, because Suba was unique. He was a real composer, a real pianist, a real producer, and a real arranger. And he came from so many different worlds. And when he arrived in Brazil, he put it all together. The Brazilian warmth and the European cold, and it was all in his mind. So Bebel freaked out and said, this is incredible. So I knew I had to introduce. At the same time, I had met Marc and Crammed because of a compilation I was doing for David Byrne's label. It's a whole other story. And I loved, and I still love Crammed because Crammed had a very modern side and had a very folky side. It had African music, it had Balkan music, and then it had drum and bass music. It had things that were, you know, you would never think the same record company would put that all together, and Made to Measure and Hector Zazu. It was, you know, it was very, very adventurous and very cool, as it still is. And at that time, this is 97, 98. It was sort of the beginning of the internet. We didn't have CD burners. We had to make cassettes. We didn't have SoundCloud. It was a nightmare to send music back and forth. It would take 3 weeks to get a cassette, and I still have all original cassettes. So through Wolfgang, I think he gave me Suba's phone number in São Paulo, and the next trip I came to São Paulo, I called and we met, and it was, you know, friendship at the first sight. And I said, how do you do these things with these bossa samples and all this stuff? And I said, you know, I'm friends and I work with Bebel Gilberto in New York. And I think there's something here you guys have to meet, you know. And at the same time, I'm talking to Marc and Hannah about starting a Brazilian label imprint outside of Brazil already, which I think it was one of the first or the only one still. I don't know. Now we have a few already, but Zinig Boom was a Brazilian label outside of Brazil, you know, in Brussels, in New York, and in San Francisco. So, long story short, I introduced them. Oh, and meanwhile, he sent me, then it was already, there were CD burners and CDRs, 90, 98. He would send me CDs. It was called Hard Hat Area. And I still have some written by him with these incredible beats and incredible, very techno-ish and very, you know, loud and aggressive music. And some had a Brazilian vibe and a Brazilian spirit. So I said, you know, Suba, I prefer the ones with the Brazilian vibe and the Brazilian spirit personally, because I don't like heavy techno, I don't like heavy machine sound. And because I think he also had both sides. He could write something very beautiful and something very aggressive at the same time. So I think it started to shape, you know, but it's 20 years later. I don't remember the details, but it's starting to shape up. And I, you know, send it to Marc and let's start a label. Let's work with Suba. Let's work with Bebel. There was another project, Bossa Cucanova, that, you know, arrived on our lap. It was a small little record in Rio and we released in Europe. So the label started. Meanwhile, Suba is working on his project. Then Bebel came to São Paulo. Then we all met. And Bebel and Suba also had this mutual admiration, you know, because Bebel has a unique talent and Suba had a unique talent. So between them and I had a CDR with many samples and loops from my record collection that I knew were songs to, in the hands of the right producer, those samples could become songs, you know. So I gave a copy to Suba, and he started manipulating the samples, and the songs started shaping up and coming together. And Bebel was writing lyrics, and then we got a small budget from Crammed to make the album, and Joao Parahyba came into the mix. It was a friend's studio, Quackers in São Paulo. We were having Coke and sandwiches in the bakery in the corner. We had no, it was very tight budgets to make it all happen. And we had to fly to Rio for João Donato and Rangers and horns. It was, and then we had guests. We had Thievery Corporation. We had Mario Caldato. That's Bebel's story, but which I can speak later. But coming back to Suba's, the album came together, and he had a name. And São Paulo Confessions, he one day called me and says, can you help me write a text about how São Paulo is so futuristic? So I helped him with a little text that is in the album. And I think Marc and Hannah came with the album design, which is very dark, also very urban. I pulled some records out for our meeting. This scene could be anywhere in the world, but it's very urban, very mysterious, somebody crossing the street. And then, like Marc said, my recollection of the whole thing is so convoluted. The album was coming out those weeks. There were some initial reviews that I think he saw, because I remember he had a fax machine and he read a few reviews. And the day he passed away, I was with Marc in Brussels, and it was very sad. It was a beautiful day, and I was in Brussels working with Marc, and I went out for lunch with a friend in the old part of Brussels, and I come back to Crammed, and Marc sit me down in a table, and he was pale, and Hannah was pale, and I'm like, I thought my mother had died or something, I thought they were going to give me some crazy news about somebody in my family. And then Marc said, Suba just died in São Paulo, and I said, but it's impossible, I saw him 3 weeks before that. I was in the apartment with him, and everything was fine, and he was super happy, and he was coming to Europe to do press. He was really feeling, says, now everything is going to change, and there's going to be a line of people who are wanting to work with him in Brazil and around the world. And then it was all cut, and it was like an atomic bomb, falling apart. It was very, very hard to take. I had to fly the same day to London. Bebel was living in London. We were finishing Bebel's album. It was not mixed. Antoine had a copy, thank God, of the hard drive. And if not, we wouldn't have the record. So I flew to Bebel. I said, you're home, you wait for me, because I have to fly to London. I'm in Brussels, I'm flying to London, to tell you something. So she was already very worried about what I was going to say, and she didn't know. I was concerned somebody was going to call from Rio and tell her. I wanted to tell her myself. So we stayed, I don't know, 2 days in London. It was very dark. You couldn't stop crying, and how terrible fate this is. For Suba was just starting, and for us was just starting, and that thought of what could have been, it always still haunts me. What could have been, if he was still with us. Imagine the amount of music in 25 years that Suba would have produced by now. He had so many albums prior already before that. Imagine if he was here today and had 25 years of music. So it's very, very sad. But as we see, the music is still reverberating. It's still going into new generations. I wish there was more. I wish there were more vinyl of all the stuff, the European stuff. I know Vladimir is releasing some, but there's a lot of, I have many CDRs of material, and I hope everything comes out eventually to the world. but it's very sad, and it's a loss to the music world, because he really brought something to Brazil that was so ahead, that still can. I don't think anybody. We have incredible electronic producers, but I don't think anybody had that sensibility of Europe and Brazil and the piano and the arranging and the electronics and the percussion. And then he made me the favor of introducing me to Mr. Parahyba. And that's a whole different story. We made the comeback of Trio Mocotó. You know, they were not thinking of recording again. And thank God we did. And I had the pleasure a few months ago to see a new Mocotó show that was incredible. And we're going to do another record. Good. And so one thing connects to the next. You know, music is the language. That's why I love music so much, because music is what will really keep this planet moving ahead. And that's it, the short of it. I'll be quiet now. I spoke too much.
No. Thank you. Let's go to Taciana now. If this is a normal world, Taciana would speak first, but it's not a normal world.
No, it's okay. I really wanted to know these stories because it's new for me. I never spoke to Marc, and it's very interesting to understand how everything happened. First of all, apologize my English. That's the way I communicate with Suba.
Just for like talk, it doesn't matter.
For 2 years, we are communicating like this. Suba learned Portuguese with my son, Daniel, when he was 6 years old. And after 2 years talking to Dani, he started speaking a perfect Portuguese. But Suba was working with Joao, and I had a home studio. In my house, I have a studio, and he rented. Every day he was working at my house. We were not friends, but he was friend of my sister. And it was strange because he works a lot, and he would go to the studio at 9 to 9, working non-stop. And I said, he needs to eat something. And I started, I was bringing to him passion fruit every day, a juice, a glass of passion fruit. And we started talking and started becoming friends. And then he went to a show that I was doing. And he said, I want to produce an album of you. Let's talk about this. And this was 94. My album, we released at 95. I think I introduced Fabio to him because Fabio recorded my album, João recorded my album, Edgard Scandurra also. So the gang started there. And at this time, he was always saying, I want to release my album, but first I will release a lot, work with a lot of other people. He was working with other artists, and then after all, a lot of albums in Brazil, he released, he produced it. He was the best producer I ever seen in Brazil, and I agree with Beco. We don't have this guy. When he passed away, Edgard said, now maybe somebody will born in somewhere, and in 30 years we'll have someone like him.
We're still waiting for that guy.
Yeah, but the good part of all this, and he changed my life, and he changed the life of all the musicians he worked. And I feel him in everything I do. Every day I talk to him. Maybe, Suba will like this. What he think about this mix? I think that the power of Rusas, the Mama Rusa, make all this tragedy have a meaning, and that we can use this energy of Suba. We can resignificate, I don't know the word, but I feel that Suba made a very strong difference and he made all the way different for all of us in Brazil. He changed Brazilian music, né?
Yeah.
Like it's a really, really, really strong thing what he made in Brazil with all the artists. So this make possible not to feel sad today and to feel happy that talk to you and think that Suba is still with us. Because Beco said it's modern, né? But what's modern? Modern is eternal. What the meaning of modern? What the modern is eternal, and that how I feel Suba's music and Suba. So I'm very. I have I don't know, but I think that I don't like to think that it's sad because he was very happy. When one day before he passed away, he sent me a message. I was working and said, "Where are you? I'm very happy.
Oh.
My album will be released." And he thought about Marc, and he was in the great moment of his life. So that is the way, very beautiful to pass away. That's that. I don't know. I think that's what I can say with my ridiculous English.
No, it's good. We understood everything. Are you still listening to the Sao Paulo Confession sometimes?
Yes, I have just a few, né, participate. I wrote 2 lyrics. Você gosta? It's my voice, né? And the other Sibeli. And he invited me to the studio. I had the lyrics, and he said, "Try 3, né?" That's I você gosta. Eu sei de que vai. He said, "Okay, it's perfect. We're done."
I'll ask you later about like directly like involved in the album Sao Paulo Confession, so how you did it. Let's go to Fabio because you introduced him as well. Now we have this introduction. Fabio,
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit like from this 25 years later, how it hit it then and how it hits today?
Yeah, well, for me, it was I was involved with Suba a bit before this time when he became a big producer in Brazil. This was through Taciana. I think we were rehearsing Taciana's studio at that time, and she said, "Well, you must meet a guy that probably you have a lot of things in common, because I love all the progressive rock music. I know all these contemporary composers." And then she said, "Well, you must meet Suba." And then what happened? It was, I think, in 93 or 94, early 94. It was before, I think, before Taciana's album. And what happened was we met, and then we start talking a lot of things in common of musically. And then I show him one of my guitar techniques, because Suba liked to explore different angles of how to create music with different sources. And then we start a meeting, a kind of weekly meeting every I don't remember when, but Wednesday or some day. And then I went to a studio and we start improvising or recording some beats. And then at that time, Joao Parahyba was working with him also with some pieces. And then at some point he said, "Well, let's start try to finish these recordings with a friend of mine called Milan, also from Serbia, I think. It was Yugoslavia at the time." And Milan, Suba prepared all the tracks for this that he was compiling. And then when Milan came, he finished the album, and then he called Angel's Breath. I think it was a name of one of his old projects.
Yeah.
And then this thing happens in 1994. At the same time, I was working with my band. I was releasing one of my solo albums at that time, and Suba helped me in some live shows. And that's it. Then we had a long collaboration for this period in this Angel's Breath album. And I met Joao, which was a great pleasure to meet this great guy. And then after that, I think Suba start working, I think, with more direct to Brazilian music. Then we not lost contact, but we still in contact. But I continued doing my work, and then Suba become working with this more famous. And that's it. So this was a very great. Well, we did, in fact, I think I did one of his first live performance. We did an appearance in a electronic festival. Me and Suba. Suba gave me a cassette, and then we improvised some pieces live in São Paulo. This was the first time I played with him live. And then later with Taciana, when we did a tour with Taciana, also when she released her album. Yeah, it was a very interesting moment in my life, because I was exactly doing a kind of my solo career, and then what I remember of Suba is like he was a kind of he was a producer, not only a producer, a musician, but he could see the Brazilian music from a different perspective, different from the Brazilian artists. This is why I think he created something new, because he could join aspects of the music with a different way that the Brazilians can do that at that time. And also he bring all this innovation, doing all this electronic stuff. And then I think this was one of the most interesting thing I grabbed from Suba, how he could synthesize everything and put in a kind of, not a package, but put something in a concept that more people could understand internationally, especially. Yes.
Thank you. It's so nice, like you're all leading next to the next level. So Joao,
yeah,
Fabio introduced you already. So as from my point of view, Joao is like the guy I know the best from all of you, because he was our guest here 6 months ago, or a bit more, when we did the first Suba's room. And I hope we're all gonna get together in one point of time to do this all live with everybody together. That would be really nice, like with Suba is a central point. But I know, Joao, we talked a lot these 10 days you were here, and I like find out about Suba a lot from you. So I know he met you very early in the second day he arrived in Brazil. So maybe now it's time to go back to this time when he actually arrived to Brazil. So, and the second day he was there, he met Joao. And Joao.
Oh. First, I would like to say, I feel, I tell my family, all friends, I feel I'm a privileged guy in my life, because just to have all you here together is a special moment. Who was the first days with Suba? You know, I met Beco, I met Taciana, Fabio, and Marc, and in this. It's a small period, because Suba arrived in Brazil with 28 years old. I was 40. He arrived in one day. Second day, Natale introduced him to me. He came to my home. I had a home studio just in the neighbor of Taciana. And he came at noon, and we started talking together in his studio, and he came out at 4 in the morning. And we realize we have the same kind of view in the head. We are not musicians or producers. We are creators. The important for us was the sounds, because music is what birds do, what musicians do, what the water do. He used to hear everything in his head, like me. And then we start playing together and creating things together. And from this moment, I know he changed all my life, because I'm a kind of terrorist musician. You know, I'm not samba player, I'm not jazz player, I'm not African player, you know, Greek or Serbian music. I'm inside of the sounds of this music of the world. we used to call this Memoria Mundi because there is a memory of music around the world who you can see in China, in Belgium, in Brazil, in New York. And he was really a blender, agglutination guy, And I think so. Suba was very lucky, and we are too, to be exactly like Marc said. In that moment, that's make him a special person in the world, because he was a producer, a musician, and a human being created by his father, who was ambassador. Suba was ambassador too. Mama Rusa is ambassador. He got all these things from Yugoslavia, from Serbia, from Europe, who is, I think, so is a place completely open. I think that's because Marc was in the right time to do African music, Brazilian music, and electronic music. He label, or he company came from his mind. Marc is so open, like Beco is so open, and Suba was so open to hear and say, okay, this is different. And this was our goal. We did the thing completely different, in the moment different, in a special moment in the world, in the music, in the world, especially in Brazil, who was trying to make some new music with not bossa nova, with not jazz, with not samba. He put all together. Even before this, he used to do in Serbia, but in Brazil, he make a revolution. Everybody said, "What is this?"
Yeah,
and this he makes a label Suba. He was a magic guy, an alchemist, not only with music, with people too. I was every day I was with Suba in some different places, and he used to, in 5 minutes, he talk in Portuguese, English, French, and he get this kind of glue with people, not only with music. Everybody loved him. I stopped my career. I had a career with 55 years. I made a group very known in Brazil, who was Trio Mocotó, and we stopped in 75. And then I was, after this, in 90s, beginning music, a new way to make music with Suba. And I met Beco. And Beco was with Suba in our studio, making the things for Bel Gilberto. And Beco started talking to me, oh, yes, 70s, yes. And then he realized, he know my music from 70s. And he don't know what's me with the Trio Mocotó was together with Suba. And then we started again a new career for Trio Mocotó from Suba and Beco. He showed our music to Marc, and Marc said, okay, this is good, and put Trio Mocotó again. This is a big privilege. But again, all the people who is here and was there, is a magic moment for everybody. Everybody of us together in this life have a special piece of love together with us, alive from Suba. He's still here. I can see, and we still listen Suba now, and all the sons of Suba in music, new bossa and around the world, who you say, oh, this guy heard Suba, São Paulo Confession, because it was really completely project new for the world. Change the way to make music electronic, to make folk music with electronic. He make a really kaleidoscope of the world inside him. And this is what Suba was and is until now. We are missing him, but he's still here. I used to say we can pass away, but the important is not our figure or body, it's what we gave to the world. You everything with Suba created and give to people is still here now, working like Suba used to do. That's Suba in São Paulo Confession.
Let me, when Joao came, he brought the whole suitcase full of tapes with almost nothing written on them. So I bought another player, and I discovered that everything you brought was Angel's Breath multi-channel tracks. So we have like almost all the multi-channel tracks from the Angel's Breath now. So it might be somewhere in the future with some kind of remixes will come with your help. Actually, that was in this suitcase you brought. We didn't know what was there. Now we know. Thank you, Joao. Let's go back to Marc, because it was past, but as I said, 20 some years later, is there an idea of republishing or something like redoing it again of Sao Paulo Confession?
Yes, I mean, there's not much we can do. I mean, there's the idea to reissue it on vinyl, because it hasn't been available on vinyl for a long time. We were just waiting for the right moment, because the current thing with vinyl is pretty misleading. You think that there are a lot of releases and that vinyl has gone up, but actually it's very, very small quantities that are selling. For somebody who has a record shop, it's great, because every week there's 10, 15, 20 releases, but actually each one of them sells quite little, and vinyl has, it's become really difficult. The price is really expensive, like manufacturing costs. So we were basically waiting for, I don't know for what, but the right moment to believe that we can really have an impact with this, because there isn't that much we can do in terms of adding new things. We already did everything we could with the Tributo album, where we did remixes and tribute tracks and all that. So we'll see.
It's there on YouTube, so it's like republishing it. It doesn't matter anymore. Like everybody can hear it anyway, any day.
Yeah, of course, everybody can hear it on the platforms and on CD, but it would be good to put it out again on vinyl for sure.
That would be really nice. I would really love that.
And
so you're thinking about that, Sam?
Yes. I mentioned that to Mama Ruza a couple of times, but we've never, it's not easy to run a label these days. It's actually quite hard, and we need to find the right slot and the right moment, but we will come to that. And another thing we have is some remixes that only came out on vinyl at the time, some 12 inches that we put out of remixes of Sao Paulo Confession. So some of these are not available on digital, so we will put them out at some point as well.
So there were more remixes than that they're published on the Suba Tribute?
Yeah, they're not on the Tribute album, but they came out on vinyl.
Yeah.
Not so many, maybe 3 or 4 that are not on Tribute and not on digital. But I mean, I don't think there's much point in doing more mixes again 20 years later. I don't think remixes are the right way to go. I mean, the original is always superior to the remixes in this case.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, he already mixed it the way he wanted to mix it, so he could do it better now.
Yeah, and it's a different perspective also. Like, it's a complete piece. It's a story. It's a novel. It's a sonic novel, this album. And to take a bit and to do remix is fun, but it's a different story.
Yeah, that's why I said with like this Angel's Breath that we have multi-tracks now. We hope like maybe Foundation in the future will do something like a remix album of Angel's Breath with Milan and all the guys. Some of you were there as well on this album. Almost all of you actually, when I think better. Yeah, all of you were there. So there is this, I don't know if you saw that the Milan Mladenovic Foundation put in a video a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, maybe put it on YouTube as called Praia do Vento Eterno. Yeah, there's like 12 minutes of.
Praia do Vento Eterno.
There is this.
Praia do Vento.
Yes, there is this wonderful moment when you are like with a cigarette in your mouth, like playing, and this Milan is playing trumpet in the background.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Bahia.
Yeah, absolutely. This was like such an amazing moment.
What is it called? It's on YouTube.
It's on YouTube called. Can you put it on the Brazilian Praia do Vento Eterno? I'm not like.
The beach of the eternal wind.
It's a beach on Bahia, né? Bahia, Salvador.
Yeah.
Barra Grande.
Yeah, when Milan came, they had a video recorder, so they recorded a lot of stuff, and Milan was actually writing a diary during these days in Brazil. So they used this diary as a like guidance, and they had this video, so they put really nice, maybe 12-13 minutes of this about Angel's Breath. I mean, not Angel's Breath, but like making it. And there is this amazing video of couple of you there, you're playing in the room, and that's like, I mean, I really now when I see Taciana, I have this image in my head with you and the cigarettes and the hats and playing guitar, and Milan is playing trumpet in the background. It's like
I don't smoke cigar, but it was a cigarette.
It was a cigarette, yeah? No, but it was a nice video.
It's a cannabis cigarette. Brazilian.
Yeah. All right.
It's funny when I hear Marc telling about a lot of remix from Suba. I remember I look my small room here because when I was invited last year to go to Novi Sad to open the first exposition of the foundation, I said, I have here one of the first works of Suba in Brazil, who was in a huge studio from the Nuns. We will call these tracks Memoria Mundi because was a big collage of Suba did with James Brown, with a lot of samples. And we made 6 or 7 tracks, and we stopped to do this because the life came with producing music and was in a big 2 inches Ampex 2 box, and I said, how can I go with this to Novi Sad? I said to Igor, to Lecic, I'm gonna bring to you everything I have. And then I start to researching here in my home, and I find we can have 5 São Paulo confessions difference. He used to make a mix after the music is finished. He gave me a mix. He gave you a different mix to Taciana, a different mix to Beco. You know, he was a workaholic, and every music has 10 remix from him. You know, it was infinity. And then that's because I would love to see something from this remix from Marc. And I know
no, the remixes we have, I mean, you know them, they came out on 12 inches. You know, there were like 4 different 12 inches that we put out to promote the album. You know, one came out before with the Você Gosta remix by Phil Asher.
Yeah.
And then 3 more.
Here, there's Felicidade remixes from Buscemi, and there is Funky Lowlives.
That was the second one.
Versions.
Then there was one by Zero DB, which was a remix of Samba do Gringo
Paulista.
Yeah.
That was a great remix. It was a different track almost. And then in the end, there's
I don't have this. Let me. I don't have this.
That's really nice.
1,000 euros. 1,000 euros.
Oh, I'm jealous.
But one of the, I mean, the A side is on Tributo, so you know it. And then the last one we put out, that was after Tributo, and it had, let me remember, I was just checking.
I have this single, Mark. There's
Yeah.
Wow.
That's the one. That's the one.
That's my favorite.
Samba do
Beautiful.
Gringo Paulista, Tantos Desejos by Nicola
Wow.
Conti, Tantos Desejos Modern Quartet and Sibeli,
Yeah.
Samba do Gringo Paulista by Paolo Scotti, and Tantos Desejos by Biga Bush.
My God, I don't have this.
Yeah.
Some curiosity about
So some of
some-
these, yeah, some of these are not available on platform.
Oh my God. Bye-bye, people.
Because this came out after. This was done after Tributo.
yeah.
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 Beautiful, beautiful product.
There is a curiosity about Samba do Gringo Paulista. Suba entered with me in a huge studio. He made some business with the guy of the studio, and they gave us 3 days in a studio with the 4 channels, one of the best studios. And we stay playing and making let's to do a lot of batucadas, a lot of things. And we make a 40 channels samba school, who is the basement of the Samba do Gringo Paulista. Yeah. And what's happened? Some years later, I was invited to make the sound of the champagne. How will you say?
Commercial.
The soundtrack of Formula One in Brazil, because the owner of the Formula One said, everybody who see Formula One, see in Belgium, in England, in Germany, it's always the I don't want. I want the TVs looking the Formula One and say, oh, this is Brazil, and we use the base of Samba do Gringo Paulista, and we make a track who during 20 years was the official soundtrack of Formula One in Brazil.
Really, I didn't know that. That's
You have the track, João. You have it?
I have this track. I send it for all you.
Send it to us.
It's only the samba school. There is a cavaquinho, who is a small guitar with Frejá.
Oh yeah.
And Frejá, who don't know, is a rock artist, very famous in Brazil, and he played with Suba in some records, and he made this for us, and he said, okay, let's do it. And then during 20 years was the official music for when the guys go the champagne, the winners. Everybody knows in Brazil. This is Suba making more stories.
Yeah. So let me ask you something directly about the Sao Paulo Confession, like making it or producing it or playing on it. How was it? Was it like there was like tracks and then you need to do what Suba wanted, or it was like more sample based and like enjoy yourself playing and then we'll see what's going to happen? So maybe with Fabio, you played it, yeah?
Well, I didn't play in São Paulo Confessions. I'm not in this album.
Sorry, I mixed. I thought, yeah.
I think it was Edgard. I think Edgard Scandurra. I think playing that album. I don't remember.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he played.
Well, there's 3 or 4 different guitarists who played on that album.
Continue what João said. I think Suba also. I worked with him in the Angel's Breath album, but I did a lot of recording for his. He did a lot of soundtracks for fashion, for some different things. But I don't know where they are. Are there those recordings? Maybe lost, but he did a lot. I think. I don't know if João has some.
I have a lot. I have a room full of that.
Oh, that's that, yeah.
Yeah, because we don't use more in Brazil. I'm very happy when I came to Novi Sad and I saw this because it's the Memoria Mundi, we call Memoria Mundi, the first recordings, is from 1902 when he arrived. 3 or 5 months later he arrived, and this unpacks the first digital tapes, and everybody told him, no, this tape is dying, it's dead. No, there is no way more to reproduce here in Brazil. And then I brought this to Lecic, and I see they can get again all the things, because Brazil has this these things. We are digital now. Okay, don't do more analog. No, now we're starting to make vinyls again, but it's very, the world today is very fast in technology, and they lose the things analog is, like Marc said, the remix is never better normally than the original. You know?
Yeah, I agree. Well,
So sorry for my mixing with that. Yes, I actually played Angel's Breath.
I'm
we have
sorry,
this-
Lecic.
No, it's not a problem at all. That's because I was listening to Angel's Breath mostly last couple of months, because we're having this multi-tracks now. So I was trying to compare what was there in the original, what was the mix, because I have now some couple of different mixes of the same tracks. So what was like on the on the multi-tracks, what did he did? There was a couple of how do you say, sub mixes on some of these tracks. So I needed like a couple of weeks to go through it to find out what belongs to where, if we could say like that. It was like, actually I really enjoyed it, couple of weeks doing it. It was really
I think Edgard is trying to join us. Edgard Scandurra. Edgard is trying to join the Zoom.
yeah,
Oh, it's coming. Oh,
that's good. He can.
Edgar is coming in.
Yeah,
Yes, please go. Welcome.
I can see him. Yeah, he's there.
Let me okay, here's like a technician we have, and let's have Edgard as well with us. The last one there.
Yeah, I would like to say we have this moment.
Okay.
We have this moment because I think so. Marc has the same open head for remix. I think Marc is a remix producer and owner of labels, because he has Africa. He discovered things in Africa. He always was a discoverer. When I find Marc in his story, I said, it's perfect for Suba. They can talk the same language. Both are crazy.
Thank you for the compliment.
No, it's
It is a
true.
compliment.
It's true.
Praise
You
is a
know,
compliment.
Yeah, no, to find us, it's like Angel's Breast was the same thing. I met Milan because Suba came to Brazil, and every year he used to return to Novi Sad for 1 month, 2 months, and bring some friend to here, say, no, you need to come to Brazil. You need to understand Brazil. And this started the Angel's Breast. Milan stayed here, and was a friend, was really pleasure moments. You know, was not, we never did brainstorm how to do this. We just played together, and it's, I don't know how to say this, but that's the difference. In Beco too, and Taciana, I met Taciana and Edgard Scandurra. Like I said, I was not a rock player. They are rock players, and then I was inside the rock. I was inside the samba rock, what they call Trio Mocotó, you know, and and jazz players. And was Beco was here. He was a New Yorker. No,
what I feel, you know, every time I think, and I'm listening to everybody speak now, Suba was global before a lot of people were global. Before, you know, he was such a mixture of everything. He was globalized, you know, when the world was not yet so globalized like it is today. Today we live, you know, sharing news, sharing music, sharing video, sharing everything all the time. It's not news anymore. But in the 80s and the 90s, the world was so compartmentalized that Suba, coming from Eastern Europe to Paris, to Sao Paulo, to Rio, he brought such a heavy baggage of information that's, I think, what made him unique, besides the talent. The other thing things I wanted to add is, as a human being, I think also, as João was saying, he was such a nice guy, because if he was not a nice guy, I don't think that all the doors in the world would have opened here in Brazil as they did. You know? I only lived with him and coexisted with him a few times because I was in New York most of the time. For me, it was more listening at a distance, but we met several times, especially the Bebel Gilberto sessions. I think we stayed a month in São Paulo and a week in Rio. And I didn't have a car in São Paulo. And many nights after the Bebel recordings, he would drive me to my mother's apartment to leave me in the house at 1 a.m. And we would stay another half an hour in front of the building, chit-chatting about everything else, about life, not about music, you know. And it was such an incredible experience because he could feel people. He could feel me. You know, I knew in his eyes that he saw through me, and he said things that I rarely heard in my life, you know, personal, as a friend. And he knew me, you know, he saw me, you know, in the studio with Bebel, and it was very tense and, you know, too much information. And what are we doing? And this electronic bossa, it was all also very creative, live, you know, writing songs from one day to the next. And the next day, the song was different already. And it was like so fast. But, and, you know, Bebel had 1,000 ideas. He had 1,000 ideas. João had 1,000 ideas. Antoine had 1,000 ideas. It was, you know, and I'm trying to manage everybody and keep it going. But when he drove me to the house at night, it was incredible because it was like he knew me from, you know, since I was a child, but he didn't know me. So that's one thing that I think also stays. It's the human being, you know, for us that met him. I think that's unforgettable. And the other thing I wanted to add, you know, next year, I think it's 25 years of São Paulo Confessions.
Yeah.
So what is, you know, a possibility is to recreate São Paulo Confessions with current people, with current producers, and everybody gets one track and makes an incredible tribute to São Paulo Confessions. You know, the original, the main tracks covered or recreated by today's electronic producers. I think that would be something very cool for next year, you know. But we would have to start 10 months ago. But in Brazil, magic happens, and you know, there's a lot of, I see young producers, they're 25-year-olds, and they're creating incredible stuff now.
You mean Brazilian producers?
I think Brazilian tributes to São Paulo Confessions with new singers, new producers, you know, new mixes, but with the compositions, with the lyrics. I think it would be, and then we can reissue São Paulo Confessions with it,
idea.
Parallel to it, and make a real tribute. You know, the influence he had in 25 years of electronic music in this country. Because I go to a lot of parties. I'm an old man, but I still go. And under my building, there's a little underground club. It's very surreal. I live above a very incredible little club for 100 people. And there are DJs that are like mixing Brazil and electronic, that if Suba was here, he would like say, my God, what is this, you know? And I started another little label called Brazil Discos, and I'm doing remixes with these guys. And they're 25, 30-year-old now. And they're the ones that tell me how São Paulo Confession, and they heard São Paulo Confessions recently, you know, not back in the day. They were not born 25 years ago. They were babies. And now they say how this thing was so important and so ahead. So maybe there is a way of doing, there are not too many tracks. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 tracks. I believe, the album, and get 12 producers to recreate it. I think that could be
wonderful,
doable. Would it be nice?
Yeah. Very nice, because everybody will listen again. The vinyl of São Paulo Confessions.
A way to keep it.
Great idea. Great idea.
I'll discuss with my friend Marc Hollander.
So, Marc, this is on you now. But is that Edgard? Are you there?
Sorry, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Can you still hear? Hi.
Because
hello.
I don't have a video of Edgard.
Baby, can you hear me?
Are you there, man?
Oi, vocês me ouvem?
Sim.
Sim.
Mas não tem vídeo,
Mas não
Edgar.
me vem, não?
No,
Não.
we
Tem que
don't have video.
habilita o vídeo. Tem um botãozinho para habilitar o vídeo.
Eu acho que eu tenho que sair para... Não estou achando esse botãozinho. Eu estou aqui num lugar chamado planos de fundo, filtros de vídeo.
Não. Você está no
Aí eu
celular?
abaixo
Você está no celular ou no computador?
celular.
Celular.
É.
Turn on the camera.
He's trying. He's on a cell phone. And a cell phone, he cannot find the camera button.
Aha.
Eu acho que... Não está com vocês isso, não?
Não.
Não.
Você
Não,
tem
tem
que
um
ligar.
botãozinho. Tem um botãozinho pequenininho, talvez. Não sei se
Áudio,
aparece no celular.
áudio e vídeo. São os dois.
Isso.
Deixa eu ver uma coisa. Então, não, eu só vi o áudio, não apareceu o vídeo para mim. Deixa eu ver aqui, zoom.
O computador é o botão ao lado do áudio.
Então, não tem o áudio. Não, quer dizer, tem o áudio, que é um botãozão grandão.
E vídeo
Eu
não
acho que eu
tem.
vou sair e voltar, tudo bem?
Tá bom.
Tudo
He's
bem.
gonna leave and come back and try to make it.
Okay. So we can continue
É.
our way. I want to talk to Taciana maybe more.
In a few minutes.
All right.
In a
Yeah,
few
we're
minutes.
here. We're waiting
Okay.
for you, Edgar. There's just like a reload your weapon.
Thank you. Deixa eu ver se eu... Entra.
There is no that analogic button.
I want to ask Tati
Que vergonha.
about the Sao Paulo Confession recordings, and I think there is like 7 different singers in this album, or if I'm not mistaken, but like something like that. It's like each song has almost songs has a different singer.
Kátia, Cibele. Quem mais?
Taciana,
Naldo,
Arnaldo Antunes.
Arnaldo,
Katia?
Marisa não.
Milan, né? Milan,
Milan?
doesn't sing?
Não.
No?
Marisa Hort não.
Marisa Angel's Breath.
Yeah. So how was it as a singer? Okay, you're an outer as well, and but how it felt as a singer, just like to fill in onto. I know you know him very well, like probably the best of all of us. And what was the feeling like filling into this Sao Paulo Confession as a vocalist, as like somebody who's like adding things on the top of everything else?
It's an honor, né, to participate of this album because it's one of the greatest album, né? Oh, Edgar. Hello, Edgar.
Oh!
And at that moment, it was very easy for me to work with Suba because we had made a lot of projects together, and it was really easy, and I felt very comfortable working with him. And it was, I don't know, I think that the result is because he cuts the words and he made it different. He said, just improvise and make it. It's the way we used to work in my studio.
That was my question. Was it like more improvising, or it was like more already?
Completely improvising. I came to the studio for the first time and I listened and recorded at the first moment I listened. I didn't listen before.
Oh, good.
So this was very good. Very challenging, no? And the dogs.
That's
and,
good.
I think that he used one whole part that we recorded. He didn't cut this part. He just used one part, and then he repeated some words. That's what I love.
Well, we have a new guest here. So Edgard, hello, nice to see you again after all these years. And well, let's start from the beginning. If you could say now, tell us your story about Suba in a short.
Como você conheceu Suba, pouquinho?
Por favor, os tradutores aí estão em ação.
Beco Translation?
Yes.
Beco, quem o Suba eu conheci junto com todas as pessoas, com a maioria dos músicos em São Paulo, que tiveram contato com ele para um projeto, acredito que era naquele estúdio das Irmãs Paulinas, que era um estúdio católico, né, das freiras, e ele fazia um trabalho lá que não sei por onde, eu acho que talvez por causa dos amigos em comum, né, no caso Paulinho Lepetit, né, que estava junto com isso daí, a Natália Barros também, que eu acho que são as pessoas com quem ele teve contato logo no começo, né? Posso estar enganado. João também, né? E
let me translate it, Garcia.
Yeah, Beco help.
Edgar met Suba around the time he met everybody else in a studio ran by some nuns. It was a Catholic nun studio, and they were recording a few pieces, and they had many friends in common, including Taciana's sister, Natalia, and Paolo Lepetit, another great musician, and they were all, became a group of friends.
Isso. E logo, foi nessa época, eu acredito que isso aí é o quê? 1992, né? 92. Eu tinha recentemente me separado da Taciana, nós somos casados, né? E eu acompanhei o romance da Tassi com o Suba.
Edgar used to be married with Taciana, and he was a witness of the beginning of her romance with Suba.
Okay, okay, let's finish, okay?
Personal part is over.
Eu preciso falar.
Let's not become too personal.
I need to talk.
That's good. Just continue. Back will help.
Fiquei muito enciumado.
He was very jealous.
E demorei um pouco para virar amigo do Suba, né?
So it took a while to become Suba's real friend because he was jealous of their relationship.
Durou algumas semanas só.
Few weeks only. Only a few weeks.
E logo em final de 95, eu convidei o Suba para ser meu produtor no projeto que eu estava chamando de Benzina, que era o meu encontro com a música eletrônica, que eu precisava realmente de uma pessoa que entendesse a linguagem, né, e que soubesse dominar o estúdio.
So in 95, Edgar invited Suba to produce his album Benzin, because Edgar needed somebody who really knew the electronic language. So he invited Suba to work with him.
E aí, a partir daí, foi um caminho de uma grande amizade, de uma parceria incrível, um trabalho maravilhoso no estúdio, onde ele realmente mostrava toda a sua técnica, a sua velocidade em produzir os sons que a gente tinha em mente, né?
So that started their, friendship. And Edgar is saying that it was amazing to see in the studio how Suba was producing very fast, and he could translate musical ideas immediately into the sounds that they were hearing, and Suba could make it happen very fast.
E a partir daí isso abriu, eu consegui acompanhar uma evolução do nome do Suba no meio artístico brasileiro, né? Trabalhou, acho que começou com a Taciana, né? Depois fez o meu disco, aí logo depois
O Arnaldo Antunes.
O Arnaldo, aí logo na sequência fez o Arnaldo Antunes, aí depois eu acho que teve Bebel Gilberto, se não me engano.
Marina.
Marina.
Edson, como ele chamava? Edson
Cordeiro.
Natal, Cordeiro.
Cordeiro. Marina Lima, né?
O
Marina
Siba, né? O Siba, né?
Mestre Ambrosio.
So after working with Edgar, Suba's name was really, very visible, and people started inviting him to produce. And he worked first with Taciana, Edgar, then Arnaldo Antunes from the big rock band Titãs, and then this guy Edson Cordeiro, who had a very high-pitched voice. and then pop singer Marina, and then it was really starting. And then Mestre Ambrosio, this incredible football band. I also was in the studio in New York. They mixed the album in Philip Glass's studio in New York with Mestre Ambrosio and Suba and Antoine.
Everybody wants to work with Suba.
Everybody wanted to work
Everybody.
with Suba. There was a line,
long list.
Ele ia patamares mais populares ainda, porque ele ia fazer um trabalho com Daniela Mercury, que é uma grande cantora extremamente popular na época, então ela era tipo número 1, talvez. Que mais?
Daniela Mercury, who's a big Bahian singer and very beloved, huge star, still is very big, and Suba was going to work with her next.
O Skank também, eu acho que ele ia fazer um trabalho com
Skank.
Skank, this popular reggae band.
Número 1 também do Prejal. Então, ele é realmente, além de ter o seu trabalho próprio, né, que é registrado com São Paulo Confessions, e ele também estava ajudando muito a dar um salto de modernidade na música popular brasileira, né? Incrível.
Yeah, he helped give a jolt of modernity on Brazilian music, in all kinds of Brazilian music.
So, Edgar, you can translate back with me as a guitar player. Did Suba told you something when you recorded like guitars? Do you have like, I need that, or she just let you play?
Quando vocês estavam gravando o teu disco, o Suba deixava você fazer o que você quisesse nas guitarras, ou ele também te dava toques na guitarra?
Ele me deixava muito à vontade nas guitarras, até chegar naquele ponto difícil de um produtor de dizer já chega, agora chega, né?
He would leave Edgar very free to do anything, but he knew when to say stop. This is enough. We have it, which is a critical point in any art and a painting. It's to say it's ready. This is it.
É o momento que nessa hora você vê a importância de um produtor, né? Que não deixa você apenas ficar jorrando ideias e mais ideias, né? Canais e mais canais de guitarra, canais e canais de percussão, mais canais de aquela coisa interminável. Então a cabeça de um maestro que chega e fala assim, não, esse solo está bom, né? Essa voz está excelente, não precisa refazer isso, não precisa, sabe, assim, tem um momento que fala, vamos trabalhar com o que nós temos. E isso ele era maravilhoso, porque de repente você tinha uma guitarra muito simples e ele jogava um efeito de eco, de delay naquilo, e aquela guitarra virava uma coisa rítmica, e um trabalho muito veloz que ele tinha de utilizar os recursos de efeitos, né, coisas assim. Então, ele trabalhava com pouca coisa e tirava muito som daquilo.
Suba was like a maestro, conducting the recording. And sometimes there was a very simple guitar solo, but Suba knew the effects to put over the solo, and it would become something rhythmic. And so he was already listening ahead and transforming in his mind. He knew, instead of doing 1,000 channels of guitars and 1,000 channels of percussion, he's like, I know what I have, and I know it's good, and this is it, and this is, ready. And that's a good producer.
Exato. A gente pode observar isso saindo um pouco do meu trabalho, mas em outras coisas do Suba, né? No disco do Suba chama Angel Breath, né? Angel Breath com o Milan, né? Tem músicas desse disco que você percebe que alguma coisa acidental aconteceu e aquilo foi explorado como base da música, né? Isso o Suba fazia muito bem, assim.
On Angel's Breath, listening, you can feel that sometimes there were some things that were not programmed and there was like accidents, and Suba would flip it and make it into something that would stay in the recording,
É isso.
Guitarist on Angel's Breath. So is Fabio still there? I don't have him here in the video.
He's still there.
Fabio,
Yeah.
I just want to tell you, like, the Suba's work in his homeland, his most famous, if you could say, not about Sao Paulo Confession, is Angel's Breath, because of Milan Mladenovic. He was such a big star in Yugoslavia. So this carry on the weight of like knowledge, because it's connected to Milan Mladenovic. So it's the most famous work in his homeland. It's pity that it is, but it's the truth, as actually The Angel's Breath is the most famous his work in his home. I mean, now it's a bit changed because of all of we've done a lot of stuff, so people know more. But Angel's Breath was really, I mean, not huge, but it was very, very important. It came out during the wartime. It had a really strong message with like anti-war movement, with this lyrics that was so strong, like hitting you in the heart and in the head. So you were part of it. So you're like part of this small Serbian history, if you could say, all of you, of course. But so tell us actually something about this Angel's Breath and these days with Milan and and Suba, of course.
Yeah, well, I think as I said before, Suba had a lot of ideas, and as Edgard also said, he created every day or every session we had, he creates something new, sometimes accidentally, because he always trying to manipulate sounds and create something different, work with voices that he has sampled before. And it was very interesting to see how he works with all this material. And of course, he produced a lot of mixes of every day a song had a kind of shape, and then was something. But he always said, well, it's not finished yet because we need to have Milan input to do the thing. And when Milan came, he really put all the lyrics, because we all work as instrumental. And of course, well, I didn't understand much about the lyrics because he sings in the Serbian and was well, I didn't know the content of the lyrics, but it's good to know. And there was a very interesting story recently, because I bought a software on the internet recently, I think 2 years ago, from a company. They produce some apps for websites, WordPress websites, and I bought one for doing my website, and the company was from Serbia, I think. And when the guy said that I knew someone from Serbia, a musician, I mentioned Suba and Milan, the guy became crazy because I mentioned that, how famous was these guys. And then he put me in touch with a magazine, and they did an interview with me just to tell something about this meeting. And so I didn't know the dimension of this. Well, I know that Milan was very famous. He compared to one Brazilian famous guitarist called Herbert Viana. Remember, Suba always say, well, this is the Herbert Viana in Yugoslavia at the time. So was very interesting to see how famous they were there in where you are now.
Yeah. Milan was absolutely huge here. And Suba was always the guy who was in the background. He never like pushes his face in front of anything. He was like background main character, if you could say. But the Milan was like a front. Everybody knew Milan like that.
Milan recorded in my album also. Remember, Fabio?
Yeah, you recorded in your album. Because it's around the same.
Guitar and singing.
Yeah, and also
and harmonic.
The harmonic, yeah. There was very interesting moment where we are finished the Angel's Breath album in São Paulo, and then we went to top of one building in São Paulo. I don't remember where, but we did some video recordings planning to do a video clip. I don't know if you remember this, João.
That's in this video that I talked like.
Yes, it is. Yeah. We are planning to do a video clip to promote the album, because there's something that album was something unique, because there are a lot of some pop tunes in the album, but in contrast with some experimental things and one of the tracks that I like, one of I play with over the João percussion is the last song called Velvet. It was one track that I really went into my guitar technique. I love that track, and for me is still one of my favorite. And it was very interesting how to see this contrast of things that Suba put in this album. All this a kind of pop, some weird experiment with voice. He brought a lyrical singer to sing one of those tracks. I think Madalena. I don't know, Madalena, and create a very weird thing with her voice. And this, I think, that album is still a kind of is experimental in some point, but also has a pop aspect in that. So this is very interesting. And we were, I think, as we did the video recording in the building, we think, well, maybe this we can be playing on a radio somewhere. I don't know what was the intention, but I think it could be probably played.
In Mama Suba's back room, if you could say, we found this bag with a lot of like handwritten things, and then we found actually there was a Milan's handwriting with all the songs from Angel's Bread. It is Taciana, I think, as well, her handwritings, and this translation of Assassino, yeah?
Yeah.
Assassino.
Assassino.
Yeah, that's the whole. Yeah, we have original, like this paper with all handwritten Assassino with
Beautiful music.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
I would like to say something.
please do.
Taciana is a little bit ashamed, but she needs to see the guys who is putting the windows on the new house. She needs to say goodbye, but she's ashamed to say.
They are waiting there in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the Atlantic forest, waiting for me there. 10 kilometers from here.
Okay.
Você pode dizer até logo para todo mundo.
So
todo mundo
I have to say goodbye, and I miss you. I miss you, Mama Rosa. I love you. What you do for us is the energy that makes us very, very happy and live in art.
I want to thank you all from this point. If somebody want to add something that it's important, and we can do this all day, and we should do this all day and every day. I think it's such a nice. Thank you guys for being here after all these years. And I mean, this is so alive. This music is alive, and all the thing we as a foundation here. And I will ask a question later, but I want to say all these things that we as a foundation here are doing now, it's only because this legacy of his is such a huge and big, and quality is such a high level that wherever you put the cities grows, if even 25 years, like 30 years later or something, you know. And we recently found his Roland System 100 in his mother's back room, this modular synthesizer from 1978, and we put it on. It works. So we are using it now. We're going to play tomorrow night here at the festival. So we brought it here. We're going to use it live. And well, again, thank you all for being here. If you want to like say a couple of words for the end, each of you. So let's start with Marc as we started.
Well, I think it's Suba's mother isn't here. Does she hear us? Or?
Yeah, she is. She's here.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing what she's done so far, you know, with her energy and her will to keep his memory alive, and not just to keep the memory alive, but it's like, yeah, to develop the whole story, you know, to get more people to know his music. And, you know, I really admire you for doing that, Rózsa. It's amazing.
Everything starts to Mama Rosa and his husband.
Yeah.
Yes, she's here. And,
that's one thing. And the other thing, yeah, what Beco suggested is great. I think we should try to do that and to come up with a remix album by young Brazilian producers, and to put it out, and then put out at the same time maybe some on vinyl. So
that would be so nice. That would mean that like this old music has a new future.
Yeah, for sure.
That would be nice. Okay. Thank you, Marc. Who was the next one? Beco?
No, I just want to say thank you for organizing this. You put us all together. We are in São Paulo. I see João more often, and he's my youngest son. And and he stopped smoking. I love him. He just stopped smoking. It's great. And but thank you for organizing this and for keeping, you guys are doing a great work, keeping Suba's memory alive. There's so many recordings, everybody has a piece of his memory. I hope this video will be watched by people over there, and I hope it lives in the internet also. We can put it on YouTube and and help people find Suba's work.
It will be on the Suba's Foundation website and on Facebook as well. Like I think in a couple of hours when we finish this, it's going to be online.
Very good.
This conversation, but as well these days. Yes, let me ask another one like small question. What happened with the Suba Institute that you all? I mean, some of you actually found it, and.
Posso falar em português para explicar? Ele foi passado para umas pessoas, para um casal que trabalha com música erudita. O Edson Natale era o diretor e passou para esse casal dar sequência.
Taciana is saying that Edson Natale passed it on to a couple that works with how to say erudito, with like classical music or new music, and they're in charge of it. But I'm not aware. I'm not.
What does it do? What do they do?
What do they do, this couple?
Não é mais conectado com o Suba. Não tem mais a conexão.
Quem?
Esse casal, eles como se eles tivessem repassado o instituto montado para eles trabalharem, mas o trabalho deles não tem a ver com o trabalho do Suba.
Ah, não? Mas então o instituto parou.
O instituto parou.
Yeah, the institute is on a hiatus, apparently.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good, we can like maybe try to put this institute and this foundation together and like continue to help Suba's music live. I mean, it's gonna live anyway.
Yeah,
we can help it a bit more as we're doing, or as we are trying to do. I hope we manage to do something well.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, that's you want to say something else? I know you're
say goodbye and let's talk more. Thank you for inviting me to make Suba's living in the air and in the sun.
Thank you, guys. This is so emotional. I'm so happy to see you all. And Fabio, is there like a couple of words from you for the end?
Yeah. I just want to thank you. Thank you all for putting this together, and also, I think it's the first time we see all together, even in. But it's very good, and I'm up to do any new work if you want to continue this live, because I think it's good to put some live input in these projects, or recording something new or anything. Any ideas will be welcome. I'm very happy. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Joao?
Edgar, quer falar uma despedida?
Thank you for all. Let's celebrate Suba on stage.
Thank you, Edgar.
Maybe.
I'm sorry we didn't get you earlier so we can talk more, but I think we will have a more opportunity in the future. We're going to continue doing this, and we expect to be invited again to talk about Suba, maybe about some other details, or anyway, we're going to continue doing this, and you can all be part of it as well, as you are from the beginning of it, if you could say. Who is there? João?
Yeah, eu só would like to say just thank you very much to the Mamaruza, Becca, Bessa, you, Janusz, Zanzal, and everybody who was part of this family of Suba Foundation. The privilege to see Marc again, because all people who is here is special people who was open to understand Suba, and Suba make everybody be together 25 years ago and 25 years now we are gonna be together again, and see people after this worst pandemic alive and working. And
Yes.
it's very important for us. This is our mission, to stay alive, to making more music and more Subas tracks, and be together will be a pleasure, Marc. Thank you, Edgard. Thank you, Beco, Fabio, Taciana, and all the Suba foundations and all the people from Slovenia. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, guys, and
Thank you, everybody.
all the love from here, and I'll see you soon. It's so nice that we are all together like this, and I hope we're gonna see you soon again, maybe in Novi Sad or in Sao Paulo. Who knows? Life is strange.
I can say in Portuguese, obrigado.
Obrigado. Yes, yes.
Obrigado. And the other one in Portuguese, ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.
That's what we use.
Works
Thank
in
you,
many
guys.
languages.
From all of us, the deepest,
Bye
deepest,
bye.
deepest love.
Ciao, ciao.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Love.
Bye.
Rest only we.
Joe, you can stay. You can stay
No,
with us like we can play now.
yeah, I just buying my ticket to go to Estonia, Slovenia.
To Slovenia, huh? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're here till tomorrow. You have to like be really fast now.
Okay. See you, Lech.
Thank you, man.
Bossa, Mama, Janusz, and all these people.
Love you, man. Thank you for everything and see you soon.
See you soon.